You came from very little. You didn't go to college. You didn't get a high school diploma. And according to many people in our country, that's it. You're never going to succeed.
The story of Rick Harrison serves as a stark reminder that empires built on fame are as fragile as the antiques that once passed through his shop.
And this one looks like it was made for a kid. The last time we had an antique kid's gun come through here, it turned out to be worth a lot of money.
As the dust settles on this modern tragedy, one question remains. Was it greed, fame, or something deeper that led to such a spectacular fall? Share your thoughts below and subscribe for more untold stories of fame's darkest consequences. The truth, after all, often hides in plain sight. The moment of truth. The marble-clad courtroom fell into an eerie silence as Rick Harrison stood, his normally commanding presence diminished by the weight of the moment. Gone was the confident smile that had charmed millions on television, replaced by a weathered expression that spoke volumes about the gravity of his situation. The gallery, packed with former business partners, family members, and media representatives, seemed to collectively hold their breath. The air was thick with anticipation, the kind that only comes when a legacy built over decades hangs precariously in the balance. Every eye in the room fixed upon the man who had once been reality TV's undisputed pawnshop king. As Rick faced the judge, his final opportunity to speak approached, a moment that would forever alter the trajectory of his life. His shoulders, usually squared with the confidence of countless negotiations, now carried the visible burden of his empire's collapse. The transformation was stark, from the charismatic dealer who could spot a fake from across the room to a man standing alone, facing the consequences of choices that had spiraled far beyond his control. The silence deepened as he adjusted his tie, a nervous gesture so unlike the self-assured businessman millions had watched navigate high-stakes deals on television. The weight of his legacy, decades of deals, relationships, and trust, built through the family pawnshop, pressed down upon him like a physical force. Each achievement that had marked his rise to fame now seemed to mock him from the shadows of the courtroom. The gleaming Las Vegas store that had become a tourist destination, the millions of viewers who had invited him into their homes through their television screens, the empire he had built from his father's humble beginnings. All of it teetered on the precipice of this moment. The judge's steady gaze reminded everyone present that no amount of television fame could shield anyone from justice. When Rick finally spoke, his words caught everyone off guard. Instead of the practiced charm that had become his trademark, raw emotion cracked through his voice. His statement wasn't a calculated defense or a plea for leniency. It was something entirely unexpected. The man who had built his reputation on knowing the value of everything now spoke about the price of losing it all. His words, stripped of showmanship, revealed a vulnerability that left even his harshest critics momentarily speechless. The confession that followed sent murmurs rippling through the courtroom as Rick Harrison finally pulled back the curtain on the true cost of fame and fortune. The impact of his words reverberated through the courtroom like a shockwave. Former allies who had come expecting defiance found themselves grappling with conflicting emotions. Journalists frantically scribbled notes, knowing they were witnessing a moment that would be dissected for years to come. The judge's expression remained impassive, but the gallery's reaction told a story: gasps, whispers, and the unmistakable sound of perspective shifting. In those few minutes, Rick Harrison had done something that seemed impossible. He had transformed from a fallen reality TV star into something far more complex, a cautionary tale about the true price of ambition in the age of celebrity. But before this empire crumbled, Rick Harrison's rise to stardom painted a different picture, one of unstoppable success in television magic. Empire's glory days. In a modest corner of Las Vegas, long before the bright lights of television fame, Rick Harrison was learning the intricate dance of the pawn business from his father's weathered hands. The gold and silver pawn shop, nestled among the city's less glamorous streets, served as both classroom and proving ground for a man who would later redefine the industry. Each negotiation, every careful inspection of an antique or family heirloom, added another layer to Rick's growing expertise. Those early days, filled with 12-hour shifts and countless encounters with both treasures and trinkets, laid the foundation for an empire that no one could have predicted. The transformation from local pawn shop to global phenomenon began with a simple pitch, a show that would pull back the curtain on the fascinating world of pawning. Rick's natural charisma, combined with his encyclopedic knowledge of history and collectibles, caught the attention of television producers seeking something different. What started as a gamble quickly evolved into Pawn Stars, a show that would revolutionize reality television and turn a family business into a cultural touchstone. The cameras captured something magical, the perfect blend of education, entertainment, and the thrill of the deal. By 2010, Pawn Stars had skyrocketed to unprecedented heights, becoming History Channel's highest-rated show and transforming Rick Harrison into a household name. The numbers were staggering. Millions of viewers tuned in weekly to watch Rick and his team navigate the delicate art of negotiation. Each episode brought a new treasure through the doors, and with it, Rick's masterful ability to weave historical context with shrewd business acumen. The show's success wasn't just about the items being bought and sold. It was about the stories behind them, the history lessons seamlessly woven into each transaction. Rick's magnetic presence on screen was undeniable. His ability to break down complex historical facts into engaging stories, coupled with his quick wit and genuine enthusiasm, created an instant connection with viewers. Whether explaining the significance of a Civil War artifact or detailing the intricate mechanics of a vintage timepiece, Rick made learning feel effortless and entertaining. This unique combination of knowledge and approachability didn't just attract viewers. It transformed the way people thought about pawn shops and turned Rick into an unlikely educational figure in popular culture. The expansion of Rick's empire moved at a dizzying pace, spreading far beyond the confines of his Las Vegas shop. The gold and silver brand became a tourism magnet, drawing thousands of visitors daily who hoped to catch a glimpse of television magic in person. Rick's business acumen shone through as he diversified into merchandise, books, and personal appearances, each venture seemingly turning to gold under his touch. The pawn shop itself transformed from a local business into an entertainment destination, complete with tour buses and lines that stretched around the block. It wasn't just about pawning anymore. It was about being part of a cultural phenomenon. Celebrity status arrived with all its glittering perks, transforming Rick from a savvy pawnbroker into a bona fide television star. His signature laugh and catchphrases became part of pop culture, while his expertise earned him invitations to prestigious events and speaking engagements. High-profile collectors sought his opinion, and his word could make or break the value of historical items. The man who once spent his days behind a pawn shop counter was now rubbing shoulders with A-list celebrities, appearing on major talk shows, and commanding attention wherever he went. The transformation seemed complete, from humble pawnbroker to history-making television personality. From the outside, Rick Harrison's empire appeared flawless, a testament to the American dream realized through hard work and ingenuity. The show maintained impressive ratings, merchandise flew off the shelves, and the pawn shop's reputation for authenticity seemed unshakable. Rick's personal brand had become synonymous with expertise and trust, making him the go-to authority in the world of collectibles and historical artifacts. His family's legacy had evolved into something greater than anyone could have imagined, with each season of Pawn Stars adding another layer to what seemed like an indestructible foundation of success. Yet beneath this gleaming facade, subtle cracks were beginning to form. Whispers of tension behind the scenes, rumors of difficult negotiations off camera, and questions about the authenticity of certain deals started to circulate among industry insiders. The pressure to maintain the perfect image while juggling an ever-expanding empire began to take its toll. Looking back, the signs were there. The occasional strained smile, the growing distance between family members, the increasing reliance on dramatic storylines to maintain viewer interest. But in the intoxicating atmosphere of success, these warning signals went unheeded, setting the stage for what would become a spectacular fall from grace. As the cameras rolled and ratings soared, destiny was quietly writing a different script, one where success itself would become the architect of destruction. The unraveling threads. The first visible cracks in Rick Harrison's carefully constructed world appeared like hairline fractures in a priceless vase. Subtle at first, but impossible to ignore once spotted. Behind the polished veneer of television success, the day-to-day operations of the gold and silver pawn shop began showing signs of strain. The pressure to maintain the show's dramatic storylines started conflicting with the legitimate pawn business, creating a dangerous double life where reality and television entertainment increasingly clashed. Longtime customers whispered about changes in the shop's atmosphere, noting how the genuine warmth that had once characterized their family business was slowly being replaced by a more commercial, calculated approach. The deterioration of Rick's business partnerships hit like a series of tremors, each one more destabilizing than the last. Partners who had stood shoulder to shoulder with him during the ascent to fame began distancing themselves, citing concerns over his management style and decision-making. What started as private disagreements soon evolved into heated confrontations behind closed doors. These weren't just ordinary business disputes. They were fundamental rifts forming between Rick and the very people who had helped build his empire. The trust that had once bound his business network together was beginning to unravel, thread by delicate thread. The tensions brewing behind the scenes of Pawn Stars created an atmosphere thick with unspoken resentment. Staff members began noticing changes in Rick's behavior. The once affable boss became increasingly isolated, his decisions more erratic and self-serving. The careful balance between family dynamics and business operations, which had made the show so compelling, started showing visible strain. Camera crews captured moments of genuine friction that couldn't be edited away, while off-camera disputes became more frequent and intense. The magical chemistry that had made Pawn Stars a cultural phenomenon was dissolving in a toxic mix of ego, pressure, and competing interests. Legal storm clouds began gathering on the horizon with an intensity that even Rick's considerable influence couldn't dispel. What started as routine regulatory inquiries quickly morphed into something more ominous. Investigators began piecing together a complex puzzle of financial transactions that stretched back years, each new discovery adding another layer of scrutiny to Rick's business practices. The whispers of impropriety that had once been dismissed as competitor jealousy now carried the weight of official documentation. Behind closed doors, Rick's legal team worked frantically to contain the damage. But the foundation was already beginning to crack under the pressure. The exodus started quietly. First a few key employees, then entire departments. Each departure carried with it pieces of institutional knowledge and loyalty that had once made the gold and silver pawn shop an industry leader. The carefully cultivated family atmosphere that had characterized the early years of Pawn Stars dissolved into an environment of suspicion and uncertainty. Longtime staff members, who had witnessed both the rise and the beginning of the fall, started sharing stories with investigators, their testimonies painting a picture far different from the one America had come to know and trust. The shop's once bustling halls grew quieter, heavy with the weight of impending change. Like termites in a wooden foundation, financial irregularities began surfacing at an alarming rate. Auditors discovered discrepancies that couldn't be explained away by simple bookkeeping errors. The complex web of business ventures that had once showcased Rick's entrepreneurial spirit now revealed itself as a labyrinth of questionable transactions and murky partnerships. Each layer peeled back exposed new questions about the true nature of Rick's empire. The very success that had made him famous now threatened to become his undoing as investigators followed paper trails that led to increasingly troubling conclusions. The media, once a willing partner in building the Rick Harrison mythology, turned with predatory intensity as blood began seeping into the water. Entertainment reporters who had previously lobbed softball questions now dug deeper, unearthing stories that had been buried beneath years of careful public relations management. Every new revelation became headline fodder, each piece of investigative journalism adding another crack to the facade. The same cameras that had once captured Rick's triumphant deals now documented his increasingly rare public appearances, catching glimpses of a man under siege, his trademark confidence visibly eroding under the relentless spotlight. Rick's personal life began unraveling with the same devastating momentum that had characterized his professional collapse. The strain of mounting investigations and media scrutiny seeped into his closest relationships, poisoning the family bonds that had once been the cornerstone of his success. Those closest to him watched helplessly as the charismatic figure they'd known transformed into someone barely recognizable. The pressure manifested in erratic behavior, missed meetings, and increasingly isolated decision-making. The man who had once prided himself on being a family patriarch now found himself alone in his own kingdom, surrounded by the crumbling walls of an empire built on increasingly questionable foundations. Trust, the invisible currency that had fueled Rick's rise to fame, began evaporating like morning dew under a harsh desert sun. Former allies, sensing the shifting winds, distanced themselves with calculated precision. Each new revelation chipped away at the credibility he had spent decades building. The pawn shop, once a symbol of honest dealing and historical appreciation, became tainted by association. Longtime customers, who had once lined up for hours hoping to catch a glimpse of television magic, now whispered about betrayal and deception. The very authenticity that had made Pawn Stars a cultural phenomenon was being questioned, with each new allegation adding another crack to Rick's carefully constructed public image. The point of no return arrived not with a dramatic flourish, but with the quiet finality of a closing door. A series of damaging documents leaked to the press, containing information so explosive that even Rick's most ardent defenders fell silent. The evidence painted a picture of systematic deception that stretched back years, implicating not just Rick, but the entire foundation of his business empire. As federal investigators moved in and subpoenas began flying, the last threads of Rick's carefully woven narrative finally snapped. The man who had built his reputation on spotting fakes and authenticating treasures now faced the ultimate irony. His own authenticity was being called into question, and this time there would be no commercial break to save him. In the end, empires don't crumble in a day. They collapse in slow motion, each falling piece triggering an unstoppable avalanche of consequences. The fall. The legal challenges hit Rick Harrison's empire with the precision of a master chess player's opening moves. Federal investigators, armed with years of meticulously gathered evidence, launched a multi-pronged attack that targeted not just the visible empire, but the intricate web of dealings that had sustained it. The initial court filings painted a damning picture: systematic manipulation of business records, questionable partnerships with entities of dubious origin, and a pattern of financial maneuvering that stretched back through years of televised success. Each new legal document filed drove another nail into the coffin of Rick's carefully maintained public persona. What began as a trickle of dissent soon transformed into a flood of betrayal as former allies rushed to distance themselves from the falling star. Business partners who had once praised Rick's acumen now provided damaging testimonies, their revelations adding layers of credibility to the prosecution's case. The most devastating blows came from those closest to the operation's trusted employees and longtime associates who stepped forward with detailed accounts of behind-the-scenes manipulation. Their stories, filled with specifics that only insiders could know, eroded what remained of Rick's credibility in the public eye. The History Channel's decision to distance itself from its once prized star sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry. Years of profitable partnership evaporated overnight as executives scrambled to protect their brand from the growing scandal. The show that had redefined reality television and made pawn shops fascinating to millions was now toxic by association. The network's carefully worded statement, expressing deep concern over the allegations while emphasizing their commitment to integrity, served as a public execution of Rick's television career. The empire wasn't just crumbling, it was being systematically dismantled in front of a global audience. As the legal defense crumbled, Rick's personal life bore the visible scars of his fall from grace. Public appearances became rare spectacles, each showing a man increasingly haunted by his circumstances. The once confident smile now appeared strained, his trademark enthusiasm replaced by a haunted weariness that cameras eagerly captured. Security footage of him leaving courthouses revealed a shadow of the charismatic figure who had once commanded millions of viewers' attention. In a desperate bid to salvage what remained of his empire, Rick launched a series of last-minute legal maneuvers that seemed more like the flailing of a drowning man than calculated strategy. His attempts to shift blame, renegotiate with prosecutors, and appeal to public sympathy through carefully orchestrated interviews fell flat. Each move only served to highlight the increasing desperation of his situation. The approaching verdict cast a long shadow over Las Vegas, where Rick's story had begun decades earlier. The gold and silver pawn shop, once a tourist mecca, stood as a quiet testament to fallen greatness. As the date of final judgment drew near, even Rick's staunchest defenders fell silent, knowing that the evidence presented left little room for interpretation. The only question remaining was the severity of the consequences. In the ruins of a fallen empire, legacies aren't measured in dollars or ratings, but in shattered trust and cautionary tales. Rick Harrison's story was about to write its final, indelible chapter. Legacy in ruins. The aftermath of Rick Harrison's fall sent shockwaves through Las Vegas that extended far beyond the neon-lit strip. The gold and silver pawn shop, once a beacon of reality TV tourism, stood eerily quiet in the days following the verdict. Tour buses that had once crowded the streets now pass by without slowing, their guides no longer pointing out the famous storefront. The transformation from landmark to cautionary tale happened with devastating swiftness, leaving employees and longtime customers grappling with a profound sense of betrayal. The entertainment industry's reaction carved deep valleys between defenders and critics, transforming Rick's story into a referendum on reality television itself. Production companies scrambled to distance themselves from similar show formats, while network executives hastily revised their approach to celebrity-driven programming. The ripple effects touched everything from contract negotiations to compliance oversight as the industry confronted uncomfortable questions about authenticity in reality programming. Rick's fall became a case study in how quickly television empires could crumble. The once unified fan base splintered like a precious antique dropped on concrete. Die-hard supporters clung desperately to memories of better days, constructing elaborate theories to explain away their hero's downfall. Others felt personally betrayed, their years of loyalty transformed into bitter resentment. Social media became a battleground where these factions clashed, each new revelation sparking fresh waves of controversy and deepening the divide between those who still believed and those who now saw only deception. Let me craft the final 4 paragraphs of Legacy and Ruins, incorporating the emotional storytelling while maintaining the focused word count. The dissolution of Rick's business empire resembled a domino effect played out in slow motion. Each venture that had once borne his name crumbled under the weight of scandal, taking with it not just finances, but the dreams of countless employees who had believed in the Harrison brand. Franchises shuttered, merchandise disappeared from shelves, and licensing deals evaporated overnight. The economic impact rippled through Las Vegas's entertainment sector, leaving a void where a thriving enterprise had once stood. The Harrison family's public statement, a careful blend of regret, distance, and barely concealed pain, revealed the human cost behind the headlines. In carefully chosen words that spoke volumes through what remained unsaid, they acknowledged the end of an era while trying to salvage what remained of their personal dignity. The statement painted a portrait of a family grappling not just with public shame, but with private grief for relationships shattered beyond repair. Media analysts would spend years dissecting the phenomenon of Rick Harrison, transforming his story into a modern parable about the price of fame. Documentary makers, journalists, and cultural critics descended upon the remnants of his empire, each seeking to understand how a man who built his reputation on authenticating treasures had failed to maintain his own authenticity. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The expert in spotting fakes had created the ultimate illusion. In the end, Rick Harrison's legacy became less about the empire he built and more about the cautionary tale he left behind. His story entered the pantheon of great American rise and fall narratives, alongside other titans who had soared too close to the sun. Future generations would study his trajectory not for inspiration, but as a warning about the thin line between ambition and excess, between success and self-destruction. The story of Rick Harrison serves as a stark reminder that empires built on fame are as fragile as the antiques that once passed through his shop. As the dust settles on this modern tragedy, one question remains. Was it greed, fame, or something deeper that led to such a spectacular fall? Share your thoughts below and subscribe for more untold stories of fame's darkest consequences. The truth, after all, often hides in plain sight.